Good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to Lunch Break with the Rabbi today. Today is Monday, December 28th, 2020. Today is the 13th day of the month of Teves, and we are in the last and final parsha of the book of Genesis, Parshas Vayechi. Today we're going to talk about what does it mean and why work hard. You know, there were once two souls seeing each other while one was going out of this world and one was coming in this world. And while the soul that was coming in this world sees the soul that's going out of this world and says, "Hey, what's it like down there?" The soul says, "Wow, down in this world, it is so easy. With one coin, you can do a mitzvah. Unbelievable. All you need, one coin, and you can already do a mitzvah." The soul looks at him and says, "Wow, that's amazing. I'm rushing there." He says, "Yeah, but to get that one coin, boy, do you got to work hard." We look at this world, we see, all these different ads, work at home and make money quick and everything else. And we all know that you can't make money quick. We all know that in order to make and to earn, you got to work hard, you got to put effort, and you got to do due diligence to be able to make it. But why is it? Why did God create the world the way that there should be some work in what we do? Why wouldn't it make it that everybody has what they need and we're going to just sit back on our beach chairs and enjoy? But God made it that every single one of us should have to go to work, should have to toil, to be able to make a living. In this week's Torah reading, we read about the Jewish people coming down to the land of Egypt. And the Torah tells us that Yaakov's best years of his life, his 17 years of his best life, the 17 best years of his life was in the land of Egypt. In fact, when he first meets Pharaoh, Pharaoh asks him, "How old are you?" And Jacob says, "Well, my life was a misery. Most of my life I was being chased by my brothers, by my uncle. I was being tormented. But now these 17 years that I can sit together with my grandchildren was beautiful." But then we look a little bit further. And as we see as the Jewish people then settle in the land of Egypt, and as we know we're going to move into the next Torah reading of the book of Exodus, we're going to read about the enslavement of the Jewish people as well. And how many years were the Jews actually in Egypt? Well, if you look back at the beginning of the book of Genesis, where God tells Abraham about his children having to work hard in the land of Egypt, God says that they will have to be a slave in the land of Egypt for 400 years. But then he says later on, afterwards, in the book of Exodus, that they were there for 430 years. And if we look for actually how many years they were together in Egypt, it was only 210 years. So which one is it? Not only that, from the 210 years, we know these 17 years, Jacob and his family was having a fabulous time. Taking it even a step further, it says as long as one of the people of the tribe of Levi was alive, one of the people of the tribes, that means one of the 12 brothers were alive, the Jewish people weren't enslaved. So that's even further. Some commentaries even suggest that the reason why Miriam was given the name Miriam, which means bitter, because she was born when the actual enslavement started. That means the actual enslavement was only for 86 years. So which one was it? How long were the people really in the land of Egypt for? Were they enslaved for 80 years? Were they enslaved for 400 or 210? And when we look at it, we actually see an entire picture here. One of the reasons why God wanted the Jewish people to be in Egypt was because he promised Abraham that eventually the Jewish people are going to leave with great wealth. They're going to uplift and transform what they've received from Egypt. When Abraham came down to Egypt the first time, that's when the Torah officially counts the time of the 400 years began that the Jewish people were in Egypt. So that's for calculation reasons. But the purpose of why a Jew comes to this world, why a soul enters this world, is to be able to elevate and transform the world. Everything we encounter, We have a mission and obligation to transform it and to find the holiness in it. Even in Egypt, even in the most impure thing. And that's why we go to work every single day, is because we have an obligation to uplift the material, to make the money that we earn and then use it for a godly purpose. Use it for the things that we need for our family, but then also use it for charity. Use it for things that even when we use it for the things that we need for our family and our materialistic things, but they should be imbued with a spiritual entity and a spiritual purpose. I want to share with you a story that happened several years ago. This is going back almost 35, 40 years ago. There was a rabbi, his name was Rabbi Gurevich, Chabad rabbi in Lyon, France. And he was once giving a class on a regular Wednesday afternoon, and a new fellow showed up to the class. And after the class, this fellow, his name was Mr. Chazan, comes to the rabbi and tells the rabbi and says, listen here, I'm a pretty well-to-do individual, and I was just audited by the tax company. And they're telling me that I owe about 7 million franc, which this means absolute bankruptcy for me. What am I to do? I want you to write to the Rebbe and get a blessing from me, this Mr. Chazan says. The rabbi looks at him and is like thinking, says, what's going on here? Every person that's going to have a problem with taxes is going to come and want to write to the Rebbe. So he says, you know what? Listen here, Mr. Chazan, the rabbi says. I don't know what your problem is. And you're claiming you have an issue with the taxes. I'm more than happy to write to the Rebbe for it. However, in order to receive a blessing, we need to invest to be able to get the blessing. What is your promise? What is your dedication that should this issue get resolved, what do you guarantee to God? Where's your commitment? And they're thinking, and he says, you know what? The community is now looking to build a preschool. How about you finance the preschool should this get resolved? He says, okay, deal. They write this to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe writes back the next day that he should check his tefillin and mezuzahs. Mr. Chazan immediately buys a new pair of tefillin, checks his mezuzahs, and within a few days they tell him, yes, they drop it in half. So the rabbi calls him up and says, look, half of the miracle already happened. We got to make sure that you do your end. He says, well, I said only if the whole thing drops. And lo and behold, a few weeks later, the tax firm calls him and says it was a mistake. We really shouldn't have audited you. And the audit was made by mistake. And really, you don't know anything, and everything was dropped. And Mr. Chazan kept his side of the deal. What was going on over here? God says we need an investment. We need to work hard to be able to see the blessing of God. God wants us to make a vessel to see the blessing of God. The same thing happened with the Jewish people when they were in Egypt. The Jewish people, when they were in Egypt together with Jacob, they were working hard. But they were working hard in the study of Torah, and therefore they didn't have to be enslaved. They were working hard in learning Torah, and therefore they didn't have to be enslaved. In fact, that's why the tribe of Levi was never enslaved, because they were always studying the Torah. When we study Torah, when we learn the Torah, we are always free people, because we're committed and we're working hard in transforming the world into a holy place through a different method. The moment we run after materialistic wealth, like the Jews in the time of Egypt, where they let go from the study of the Torah and they decided that they're going to take other vacations and working for Pharaoh and trying to reach in the echelons of Egypt, that's when the enslavement, that's when the suffering began. When they gave up the yoke of God and they started seeking other alternatives. The best years of their life was in Egypt. That's when they were focused in transforming Egypt to a spiritual place. Same is true with every single one of us in our own life. Every single one of us has a way that we can actually transform the physical world. But we need to stay zero focused on it. We have to remember that that's our goal of why we are dealing with the physical, why we have the physical, and what the physical is all about. Let's not make the physical the main thing. Let's remember the Torah, the goal is to transform the physical, not to get caught up in the physical. Then we will truly appreciate. And then we can have Vayechi Yaakov, live truly happy, healthy years, not being succumbed to the materialism, remembering that the world the way it is, work the way it is anti-ego, anti-climatic, is not meant to be able to uplift us, materialism. Spirituality will uplift you, and then you will bring the materialism with it. God bless you. Have a great day. Looking forward to joining you again tomorrow. Lunch break with the Rabbi at 1 p.m. All the best.